Welcome to the Design Comedy. I'm Eric, your architectural designer and draftsman extraordinaire. After last week's video about furniture by tortured artists, I'd like to talk about furniture that I want. Furniture that's actually worth the thousands of dollars that I don't have, but gosh darn it, when I do, I'm driving to Zealand to pick it up myself. As much as I enjoy throwing shade on ugly furniture design, I'd hate for you to think that I'm just some bitter architecture graduate taking out his frustrations on designers for making a name for themselves while all I have to show for my creative efforts is a stupid YouTube channel. You can subscribe to the stupid YouTube channel by clicking on the link below. For this list, instead of narrowing it down to my 5 favorite pieces of furniture, which would be like trying to find the single best interior design style out of literally hundreds of mid-century modern, for this list I'll be talking about my 5 favorite designers. Let's do this. The oldest on my list, Michael Real Chairs Have Curves Thonet, is most famous for this chair. You see this chair everywhere, and you might even have it in your dining room. Thonet started as a cabinet maker until he decided to experiment, and we all know what that's like, especially in college. He layered some wood veneers together and then steamed it so it could be bent. Well, bending wood with steam wasn't exactly new. Thonet's method made it a lot easier and it became very popular. You might even say that steam bending reached its climax with Thonet. While this style of furniture isn't exactly my favorite, I'm willing to recognize Thonet's significant contribution to furniture design, especially for the time period. Before him, most wooden chairs were really heavy and either super boring or super extra, more extra than the macaroons I made last Christmas. So had I been born in the early 19th century, Thonet would probably be number 1 on my list. And my list would be in a magazine, not a YouTube channel, and I'd probably be a real architect by now because this was before NCARB and you didn't need an expensive master's degree to get your architecture license. I'm not mad. Let me introduce you to Florence Decorator Schmecker Knoll. Born in my wonderful home state of Michigan in 1917, she transformed the quaint little hobby of interior decorating into the respectable career of interior design. Before she came along, what wasn't designed as part of the building itself was hastily ordered from a catalog. Your typical office farm was just a disorganized matrix of chairs and desks, like a kindergarten classroom stripped of all color and happiness. And the boss's office wasn't much better. Your average early 20th century CEO would hire his wife as a decorator to pick a shade of mahogany and really go for it. The massive mahogany desks, mahogany bookshelves, mahogany cabinets. Oops, you missed a spot. Here, cover it up with this mahogany wall panel. We really want to capture the feeling of being stuck inside a hollowed out tree trunk, waiting to be set on fire by a cigarette butt or one of the thousands of employees you laid off during the Great Depression. Understandably, our girl Flo wasn't having any of that. She studied architecture, and when she finally got her hard-earned degree and went into the field, architecture firms were like, hey, you're a woman, and it's 1941. You can have interiors. Jerks. But it was cool. She met this really cute guy named Hans. They worked together, got married, and she joined his furniture company in 1946, renamed it Knoll Associates Incorporated. Together, they became this really powerful international powerhouse of furniture and power. Unfortunately, in 1955, Hans died in a car accident in Cuba, leaving the entire company to his wife. Florence recruited many well-known architects and designers, including Eero Saarinen, Marcel Breuer, Mies van der Rohe, and even Charles and Ray Eames. Note from the editor, she did not hire Charles and Ray Eames. I was just being a sleep-deprived idiot who couldn't bother to read the paper in front of me. Florence designed a lot of other furniture too, but she referred to her pieces as the meat and potatoes next to the flashier pieces in the collection. You might be wondering why I included her on this list of my favorite furniture designers, and why I practically told her entire life story before getting to the point. Besides the fact that she was an amazing woman who contributed a lot to the design industry and female empowerment, there's definitely something to be said about having meat and potatoes furniture in the home. Not everything needs to be flashy and ornate. Pieces like hers are simple, yet attractive. They'll go with just about anything in the home, and those clean, simple lines are always a winner in my book. She passed away earlier this year, 2019, at 101 years old, but her legacy will always live on. Now let's talk about Verner with Plastic You Can Do Anything Panton. I know I made fun of Panton's furniture before, like the living tower, which is this giant unwieldy block of upholstered plywood that costs more than my entire apartment. But I'm not going to let one prop from Seuss Landing define the man. Vernor Panton, born in 1926, went on to essentially define the 1960s aesthetic. An era of bright, vibrant colors and simple shapes. Like everyone else in the 60s, Panton liked to experiment. He played with some ideas that no furniture designer had ever tried before, and not just for the sake of creating a statement piece like what we've seen in my last video. He played with how furniture could actually be used and stored when not in use. One of his more successful pieces is the stacking chair, the world's first chair made entirely out of one piece of molded plastic. Not only did it create a brand new aesthetic and come in a variety of different colors, it's lightweight and stackable, making it easy to store when not in use. He also designed interiors like some of Bayer's exposition ships. Remember, this was the 60s. Everybody was flying, so this wasn't really that far out of place. Vernor Panton certainly was unconventional, but he always kept the user in mind and set a new standard in modern furniture design in the process, cementing, or should I say, injection molding, his place on my list. Now we're going back to the 50s with George, Can I Have My Pizza with Extra Thin Crust? Nelson. Born in 1908 Connecticut, Nelson went on to study architecture. He believed that the work of a designer should be to better the world, so his approach to design was more to solve problems than to create an aesthetic. A designer after my own heart. For a while, he just worked as an architect and published a book called Tomorrow's House, which introduced a lot of crazy ideas, like this thing called a family room, and how the space behind walls could be used for storage. Calm down, Edgar Allan Poe fans, not that kind of storage. Now, before Nelson even started designing furniture, his ideas landed him a sweet gig as the director of design at Herman Miller, here in my wonderful state of Michigan. A lot of his furniture was designed with very thin edges, creating this really sleek look. He was also the first to look at the office cubicle designed by Robert Probst under his direction and realize what a horrible mistake that was. Here's an actual quote from George Nelson, 1970, about it. One does not have to be an especially perceptive critic to realize that the Action Office 2, the original cubicle design, is definitely not a system which produces an environment gratifying for people in general. But it is admirable for planners looking for ways of cramming in a maximum number of bodies for employees, for personnel, corporate zombies, the walking dead, the silent majority, a large market. I couldn't have said it better myself, Mr. Nelson. Some of his other examples of design include the bubble lamp, the coconut chair, and this really quirky ball clock that I really want. I was going to include the marshmallow sofa, but that's actually designed by Irving Harper. Editor here again. Apparently the ball clock is also designed by Irving Harper. Why, Mr. Nelson, you weren't trying to take credit for something you didn't design now, did you? Well, given how much George did contribute to design, he wasn't a total Thomas Edison, so he still has a place on my list. What can I say? I just love the way she makes upholstery melt over the wooden frame like a fat naked man in a body horror film. Her designs evoke the same feelings of fear and the sublime art. I'm not fooling anybody, am I? It's Charles and Ray Eames, y'all. Is there any question why I picked them as number one? I mean, you just can't talk about designer furniture without the name Eames coming up. They are to furniture design as Henry Ford is to the automobile. In fact, I went to see the Eames exhibit at the Henry Ford Museum last year. Charles and Ray Eames, born in 1907 Missouri and 1912 California, respectively, met at the Cranbrook Academy of Art here in my wonderful state of Michigan. I'm surrounded by such great modern design history. It's almost like me being born here is fate. Anyway, Charles and Ray Eames married in 1941 and became the designer power couple we all know and love. Charles was the architect and Ray was the artist. Together, they didn't just make furniture and homes. They did fabric patterns, photography, graphic design, and even created toys for children to stimulate their creativity. As a matter of fact, I have in my extensive playing card collection the Eames House of Cards. This deck is designed exclusively for building houses of cards. They don't even have any numbers or suits on them, just pictures, just different random pictures. And they even have these slots on the side to make it easier to stack them. And I know that's kind of cheating, but with something titled House of Cards, you know there's going to be cheating involved. I could go on about how much I love Ray and Charles Eames' work, but I only had a week to film this, and I'm way behind on my filming schedule. So for now, I'll leave a link in the description to this interesting video about the Eames lounge chair debuting on the Today Show in 1956. There are some parts that didn't quite age well.
This is Mrs. Eames, and she's going to tell us how she helps Charles design these chairs. See, as I told you, she is behind the man, but terribly important.
It still really shows the fun and passion they really put into their work. Until next time, draft on, CAD monkeys, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that video, please like and click subscribe down below if you haven't already. I upload new videos every Friday, so stay tuned and I'll see you soon, I hope. Hey, this is getting pretty tall.